Hey, Shalom family.
Shalom.
Welcome to another new moon, new month that Yahweh has allowed for us to have. As we are entering into a new month, I think tomorrow night the heathen will be entering into their new year. As we can see, we're still in the dead of winter. But as we continue to learn of Yahweh's ways, we understand that the new year doesn't begin in the cold season. And as we all know, things are still falling off the trees, things are still dying. So obviously this can't be the beginning of life. We know when Yahweh's new year begins, life starts to sprout up from everywhere. Everything is springing up, as it's stated, spring season. But tonight we're going to go over a few things. Tonight's class is entitled, Never See My Servant Begging Bread. This is one of those quotes that my mother and I usually pass across to each other. And usually when we're talking about this, it's on that carnal, physical bread. And I guess Yahweh got tired of me being simple and saying, how long will you love simpleness? And opened my eyes and said, no, it's time to go up on a different level every time you mention this. Let's deal on the spiritual level. So since I've had to come up to the spiritual level, let's go through the journey with me. So we're all being brought up on this spiritual level. Because a lot of times people will, the heathen will throw this out to you. But when they're throwing it out, they're talking about physical gain. So let's get past the physical gain, being true servants, and see what's out there for us to really be striving for. So we're going to begin in Psalms chapter 37. Psalms chapter 37, and we're going to begin at verse 23.
The steps of a good man are ordered by Yahweh, and he delighted in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, for Yahweh upholdeth him with his hand.
So throughout our trials and tribulations, as long as we're doing what we're supposed to do and be a delight in the ways of Yahweh, like in the opening prayer, we're hoping that we're doing things that are pleasing unto him. The steps of a good man are ordered by Yahweh. Do you allow Yahweh to order your steps? Are you going through these things in these scriptures and letting your walk, your deeds reflect what you're learning? And he delights in his ways. So as long as Yahweh delights in our ways and what we're doing, and he says, though he fall, he shall not utterly be cast down. We all are going to go through trials and tribulations. We're all going to stumble and we're all going to fall. But if our ways are pleasing unto Yahweh, then the fall won't be an utter fall. It won't be a forever fall. It's just a stumbling block. Go ahead.
I have been young, and now I'm old. Yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. He is ever merciful and lendeth, and his seed is blessed. Depart from evil, and do good, and dwell forevermore. For Yahweh loveth judgment, and forsaketh not his saints. They are preserved forever, but the seed of wicked shall be cut off. The righteous shall inherit the land, and dwell therein forever. The mouth of the righteous speak wisdom, and his tongue talk of judgment. The law of his Elohim is in his heart. None of his steps shall slide. The wicked watcheth the righteous, and seek to slay him. Yahweh will not leave him in his hand, nor condemn him when he is judged.
Verse 32, the wicked watches the righteous and seeks to slay him. Do we ever consider that when we're out and about, when we're mixing and mingle with people, that they see our ways, they understand who we are, what we represent, and they're waiting for an opportunity to either make us fall or to see us fall? That's a delight. When you walk long enough, people who are really there for you, even who are not of the faith, who are not even walking, will check you when they think something's wrong. I just recently had it happen to me. I mentioned, hey, I'm going out of town. And person, hey man, have a safe trip, and got off the phone and called me right back. Wait a minute, you say you're going out of town. You gonna miss church? I said, no, I didn't say that. Because this conversation was happening Friday. So in their mind, wait a minute. I know you go to church on Saturday. You gonna miss? No, I didn't say that. I said I'm going out of town. That's gonna happen after sundown. Oh, okay, I was just checking. But it threw me off just to see how quick that person called me back. But was that check on them or check on me? Now, had I said, yeah, I'm going out of town, what kind of outlook would that have been set for that person? Go ahead.
Wait on Yahweh and keep his way. He shall exalt you to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, thou shall see it. You shall see it. I have seen the wicked in great power, and speaking
And spreading.
and spreading himself like a green bay tree.
And this is the time we're living in right now, where the wicked are in great power. But we have to do our best not to envy the wicked. It's their time. Our time is coming. We just have to be patient. Go ahead.
Yet he passed away, and lo, he was not. Yea, I sought him, but he could not be found. Mark the perfect man, and behold the upright, for the end of that man is peace. But the transgressors shall be destroyed together. The end of the wicked shall be cut off, but the salvation of the righteous is of Yahweh. He is their strength in the time of trouble. And Yahweh shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and serve them.
Save them.
And save them because they trust in him.
All right, let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 9, and we're going to start at verse 1. 2 Corinthians chapter 9, we're going to start at verse 1. So as we can see, as long as we're doing the stuff that's pleasing unto Yahweh, we're going to go through the trials and tribulations, but Yahweh will save us. We have to believe that Yahweh will save us, though. And that belief also comes in our deeds, not only just in our speech. You got to walk like you believe he's going to save you. 2 Corinthians chapter 9, and begin at verse 1 for me, please.
For as touching the ministering to the saints, it is superfluous for me to write to you, for I know the forwardness of your mind, for which I boast of you to them of Macedonia, that Achaia was ready a year ago, and your zeal has provoked very many. Yet have I sent the brethren, lest our boasting of you shall be in vain in this behalf, that, as I said, you may be ready. Lest happily, if they of Macedonia come with me and find you unprepared, we say not you shall be ashamed in this same confident boasting. Therefore, I thought it necessary to exhort the brethren, that they will go before unto you and make up beforehand your bounty, whereof you had noticed before, that the same might be ready, as a matter of bounty and not as of covetousness. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully.
So as you're giving, if you rationing out, that's what he's saying. If you give in rations, you're going to receive in rations. If you give wholeheartedly, bountifully, then that's the reward that you're going to get. And that's also part of faith. That's why Yahshua said, as your faith, so be you healed. As you believe. So if your belief is small, guess what? Your healing is going to be small. Go ahead.
Every man according as he purposed in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for Elohim love a cheerful giver. And Elohim is able to make all grace abound toward you, that you also, always having all sufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work.
Now, verse 7, you know this is what they use on you on the first day in the church, right? Every man according as he purposed in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for Elohim loves a cheerful giver. That's the one they're going to use on you. Be a cheerful giver. But at the same point, he doesn't want you to be stupid. We know there's people in the Christian church who's giving and don't know how they're going to get it back. But we know those people are being made merchandise of by using such scriptures against them. Go ahead.
As it is written, he has dispersed abroad. He has given to the poor. His righteousness remaineth forever. Now that he ministered seed. Now he that ministers seed to the sower, both minister bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown, and increase the fruits of your righteousness.
So verse 10, now he that ministers seed to the sower, both ministers bread for your food. Ministering, giving of the word. So he's giving of the word. This is the seed that they're talking about. Not that natural seed to make bread. So when we're here, when elders behind this altar, he's ministering seed to the sower. Both minister bread for your food. This is that living food. This is that forever food. This is that bread that will never perish. This spiritual bread. This is what we want to have. So as we're being fed on the Shabbat, when we're being fed on the new moons, and during the holy days, even when we're sitting around having conversations at the table and you're being fed, how many people are really digesting this spiritual food, letting it become every part of your fiber? Let this be your nourishment and your strength as well as the natural food. Go ahead, priest.
Being enriched in everything to all bountifulness, which causeth through us thanksgiving to Elohim. For the administration of this service not only supplied the want of the saints, but is abundant also by many thanksgiving unto Elohim. Whilst by the experiment of this ministration they glorify Elohim for your professed subjection unto the gospel of the anointed, and for your liberal distribution unto them and unto all men, and by their prayer for you, which long after you for the exceeding grace of Elohim in you. Thanks be unto Elohim for his unspeakable gift.
All right, let's go to Yohanan chapter 6. Yohanan chapter 6, and we're going to start at verse 30. Thanks be unto Elohim for his unspeakable gift. That gift is the opportunity to have righteousness, the gift of salvation, to be able to one day enter into a righteous kingdom. Yohanan chapter 6, and we're going to start at verse 30.
They said, therefore, unto him, what sign show you then, that we may see and believe you? What does you work? Our fathers did eat manna in the desert, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Then Yahshua said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, Moshe give you not that bread from heaven, but my Father give you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of Elohim is he which come down from heaven and give life unto the world.
Well, you see, our people are so caught up in the physical bread, that carnal bread that perished, that a lot of us don't understand that it's the spiritual bread that's going to get us where we need to be. We think that the natural bread is true strength. Even what we're eating nowadays is not real bread anyway. So once we get over that thought process, let's strive for the spiritual bread. Go ahead.
Then said they unto him, Adonai, evermore give us this bread. And Yahshua said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that come to me shall never hunger, and he that believe on me shall never thirst.
Verse 34, then said they unto him, Adonai, evermore give us this bread. And that's what a lot of people want, this bread. But are you worthy of the bread? Are you worthy to receive the bread? And if you get the bread, do you know what's necessary to keep the bread? Go ahead.
But I said unto you, that you also have seen me, and believe not. All that the Father gave me shall come to me, and him that come to me I will in no wise cast out. For I came down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him that sent me.
So we've got a problem here. If you are a one booker and you can't see Yahshua as being the Mashiach, how are you ever going to taste of the spiritual bread? This is nothing new with the one booker situation. It's been going on for centuries. So there's a problem. If you want the bread, but you can't believe that this man is that living bread, then it's not going to benefit you to have the bread. Because it's going to perish with the use it. Go ahead, read, priest.
And this is the Father's will which has sent me, that of all which he has given me I shall lose nothing, but shall raise it up again at the last day. And this is the will of him that sent me, that every one which see the Son and believe on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. The Yehudis then murmur at him, because he said, I am the bread which came down from heaven.
Up to this day, we still have Yehudis who are murmuring in this whole situation. What Mashiach? What Christ? Who? They're still murmuring up to this day. Go ahead.
And they said, is not this Yahshua, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How is it then that he said, I came down from heaven?
And we have these challenges now. As we're walking this walk, and we are disciples of Yahshua, and we go to talk to people, they're looking at us the same way. Isn't this Jacob that I know from back in the days? Who is this Esaac guy? That's not what I knew him as when we were kids. Man, come on, bro. We used to play in the mud piles together. I'm not going to receive bread from you. We'll gladly take this from a stranger. And then the stranger does what? Makes merchandise of us. Why can't we look at the change in the person? Not just in speech, but in deed. And say, hey, there's something different. Let me perk up my ears and listen a little bit. But I'm going to watch as well. But let me see what he's got to offer. Go ahead, my brother.
Verse 43. Yahshua therefore answered and said unto them, murmur not among yourselves. No man can come to me except the Father which has sent me draw him, and I will raise him up at the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they shall be all thought of Elohim. Every man therefore that has heard and has learned of the Father cometh unto me. Not that any man has seen the Father, save he which is of Elohim. He has seen the Father. Verily, verily I say unto you, he has believed on me.
Believes.
He that believe on me has everlasting life. I am that bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead.
I am that bread of life. Your fathers ate that carnal bread and are dead. I'm that spiritual bread. Go ahead.
This is the bread which come down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give in my flesh, which
that I will give is my flesh.
And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. The Yehudis therefore strove among themselves, saying, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? Then Yahshua said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, except you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoso eat my flesh and drink my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day.
Now, you know, this is rather interesting, right? When Yahshua says, verily, verily, I say unto you, except you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Once again, looking at the carnal. But at the baptism of Yohanan, the Spirit abode on him. Can you physically eat a spirit? But you can walk in that spiritual flesh. So what they're looking at is that fleshly body in front of them, not understanding that a spirit is dwelling in that fleshly body. And it's the partaking of this spiritual food, this spiritual flesh, that he's referring to. Go ahead.
For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood dwelleth in me, and I in him. As the living Father has sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eateth me, even he shall live by me. This is that bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers did eat manna and are dead. He that eat of this bread shall live forever.
And he keeps repeating it. But if you were not at the baptism of Yohanan, you don't understand what's going on. He says, this is that bread which came down from heaven. Yahshua, the physical man, they know. But they don't understand the spirit that came down and dwelt in him at baptism that he keeps talking about. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Go ahead.
These things said he in the synagogue as he taught in Capernaum. Many therefore of his disciples, when they had heard this, said, this is an hard saying, who can hear it? When Yahshua knew in himself that his disciples murmur at it, he said unto them, does this offend you? What, and if you shall see the Son of Man ascend up when he was before, where he was before? It is the spirit that quencheth the flesh.
Quickeneth.
Man, excuse me, y'all. That quickeneth the flesh. Flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. But there are some of you that believe not. For Yahshua knew from the beginning who they were that believe not, and who shall betray him. And he said, therefore said I unto you, that no man can come unto me, except it were given unto him of my Father. From that time, many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. Then said Yahshua unto the 12, will you also go away? Then Simeon Cephas answered him, Adonai, to whom shall we go? You hast the words of eternal life, and we believe and are sure that you are that anointed, the Son of the living Elohim. Yahshua answered them, have not I chosen you 12, and one of you is a devil?
All right, my brother, that's as far as I want to go. Let's go to Mark chapter 7. We're going to start at verse 24. Mark chapter 7, and we're going to begin at verse 24.
Verse 24.
Verse 24 through 30.
All right. And from thence he arose and went into the borders of Tyre and Sidon, and enter into an house, and will have no man know it, but he could not be hid. For a certain woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit heard of him, and came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by nation, and she besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter. But Yahshua said unto her, Let the children first be filled, for it is not meet to take the children's bread to cast it unto the dogs.
So if we look at this situation here, verse 26, and the woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by nation, and she besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter. So she's asking for a spiritual act to be done. And then he turns around in what would seem like it's carnal. He said, Let the children first be filled, for it is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it onto dogs. He's not talking about the physical bread. He's talking about that spiritual bread that she's asking for. I can't just give this bread to you, and I'm not giving spiritual healing over here first. So it's easy to read that and mix up the spiritual and the natural. She's asking for spiritual healing. But it seems like he took it and made it natural bread. It's spiritual. Go ahead.
And she answered and said unto him, Yes, Adonai, yet the dogs under the table eat of the children's crumbs. And he said unto her, For this saying, go your way. The devil is gone out of your daughter.
So what did she do? She let him understand that, yeah, I understand this, but I still want this spiritual food. And my faith and my belief in you is strong enough for me to wait on this spiritual food. You have this spiritual food that my daughter needs. And I believe in this spiritual food. This is a Greek. Someone of another nation. They make it point blank clear. But yet our people were having problems with this same man who's of the same nation of them. Here's a stranger that knows where to go and get the spiritual food. That says a lot for that individual. And even the reply says a lot in her belief in this individual. Go ahead.
And when she was come to her house, she found the devil gone out, and her daughter laid upon the bed.
Now you got to think about, even during these times, these people did not really associate with each other. Because remember, it's after Yahshua's death and resurrection and being taken that Saul then comes on the scene as being sent to the Gentiles. So how does Gentile heard about it? Saul isn't on the scene yet. Saul hasn't been sent to the Gentiles. But here's a Gentile seeking Yahshua for some spiritual bread. Go ahead, Elder.
Another thing you have to look at as well is the woman respected the order.
Yes.
A lot of times you find people that they want to get that spiritual bread. They want the healing. They want everything that comes with it, but they don't respect the order of how that's supposed to go. Her statement, he said, for this statement.
Right.
Okay? This statement shows that you respect the order. Go home. The healing already at your house.
Right. And what we're dealing with now is the reverse of where they've completely destroyed the order and think they're in control just because they've been grafted in. Now we're in control of the tree. We're in control of the order. We are the ones following behind something that we don't understand. Our stuff has been completely corrupted and given back to us. In technically speaking terms, we're the ones eating of the vomit. Because it's been chewed up, regurgitated, and spat back out to us in a whole different manner, and we eating it up left and right. Our own legacy, our own story. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. And Elder, even speaking of the order, we even have to understand the order. Right now, the order is, it's not our time to rule. It's their time to rule. But yet, there's some of us striving for something that we are not going to have, not in this time. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and start at verse 1 for me, please.
Moreover, brethren, I will not that you should be ignorant, how that our fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized unto Moshe in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink. For they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was the anointed. But with many of them Elohim was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our example, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted.
So if we want to get an idea of what caused our people to fall, let's go back and read the wilderness journey. Go back and read coming out of Egypt. And we can see all the aspects of what caused our people to fall. And it said what? That should be our example. We're in the New Testament. And it's saying back then in the Old Testament, they ate of the spiritual food who was Yahshua. But once again, we don't think that Yahshua comes on the scene until in the New Testament. He's talking about coming out of Egypt, being in the wilderness, and how we ate and drank of the spiritual food that was Yahshua. The only Yahshua that we know of back then is Yahshua the son of Nun, and that wasn't him. Go ahead.
Neither be you idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt the anointed, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur you, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer. Now all these things happen unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come.
So at the end of the day, what is our excuse? Now all these things happen unto them for examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. So do we see the grace and mercy and kindness that Yahweh bestowed upon us to have these things written down so we have a reference guide, basic instructions before life everlasting? Because you're going to get everlasting life, but where are you going to spend that everlasting life? Go ahead.
Wherefore, let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. There has no temptation taken you but such as is common to man. But Elohim is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. Wherefore, my dearly beloved, flee from idolatry.
So it says, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. How many of us actually reflect on a decision that we made and know there was another thought first, and we overrode that thought process and did this over here, and it didn't go well? The way to escape that temptation was created, but we overrode that decision. So we can honestly admit that the way to override the temptations have been prepared for us. But we sometimes choose not to override the temptation because we want to enjoy the temptation. But then when you enjoy the temptation and the punishment comes, enjoy it too. Go ahead.
Verse 15. I speak as to wise men. Judge you what I say. The cup of blessing which we bless, is it not the communion of the blood of the anointed? The bread which we break, is it not the communion of the body of the anointed? For we, being many, are one bread and one body. For we are all partakers of that one bread.
All right, let's go to Psalms chapter 78. Psalms chapter 78, we're going to read verses 1 through 19.
Give ear, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark saying of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of Yahweh and his strength and his wonderful works that he has done. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they shall make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, even the children which shall be born, who shall arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope in Elohim and not forget the works of Elohim, but keep his commandments, and might not be as their fathers, and stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not steadfast with Elohim. The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the day of battle. They kept not the covenant of Elohim and refused to walk in his law, and forgot his works and his wonders that he had showed them. Marvelous things did he in the sight of their fathers, and in the land of Egypt, in the field of Zohan. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through. He made the waters to stand as an heap. In the daytime also he led them with a cloud, and all the night with a light of fire. He clave the rocks in the wilderness, and gave them drink as out of the great depths. He brought streams also out of the rock, and caused waters to run down like rivers. And they sinned yet more against him by provoking the Most High in the wilderness. And they tempted Elohim in their heart by asking meat for their lust. Yeah, they spake against Elohim. They said, can Elohim furnish a table in the wilderness?
So all these things Elohim has done for us. Yahweh has provided all these things for us. But yet we turn against Yahweh. But as we can see, everything here is all about the spiritual food and how Yahweh provides for his children. But then Yahweh will also give us up to our lust and our own desires. When we desire something, do we stop to think, okay, am I provoking my Elohim by wanting this thing? Does my Elohim even want this thing for me? Sometimes we mix up needs and wants. Yahweh will give us what he knows that we need to sustain us. But just like a good father, he's going to reward you every now and again with the things you want. As long as it's something that's not going to pull you away from him, if you're his true servant. But he's been there for us. He's been there for our fathers. Those of us sitting in this room are in a better position than our forefathers were as far as this word goes. And as we pass it down, then the big detriment is when our children now put forth a different view, they have no excuse. As long as we furnished that spiritual food, not just being protectors and providers of the house, but also providing the spiritual food necessary for them to continue with this. This should get stronger from every generation going forward. This walk, this word, this culture should be getting stronger and stronger. But as it was stated, raise up a child in the way that he should go. When he gets old, like Elder has had to explain, there is that gray line of getting old. We all have to admit that we all fell off the course of how our parents groomed a lot of us. A lot of us went out, we're not going to admit it to our parents, and did some dastardly deeds, and at some point you shake yourself up and say, you know what, hey, nah, this is not who I am. This is not what I was raised to be. And we get back on the course. Hence why a lot of us are sitting in this room and not underground or sitting in a box. So then we also have to understand that as we continue to feed this spiritual food to the next generation, that there's that space of getting old. All right, let's go to Acts chapter 13. And for the children listening, the young adults that we have, even in that space of getting old, that don't mean we just going to sit by and watch you become degenerates. Not as parents, not as the village. And I guess I'm putting it out there that this is on the village, this is on all of us. To keep these young adults on the path that leads to salvation. Because the world is looking to tear them apart. Our strength is different. See, we've gotten to the point where, hey, you can run up on us and talk all you got to talk, but we're going to look at you and you're going to have your conversation, I'm going to have my conversation. We might as well start the conversation by saying, let's agree to disagree, that you ain't going to move me off my position, I'm not going to move you off your position. This is stalemate. Go your way. There's certain conversations that we don't need to have. Understand your opponent. You understand your opponent understands you. All it's going to bring is vexation of spirit. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to vexate you before you vexate me. Acts chapter 13 and start at verse 42, please.
And when the Yehudis were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them the next Sabbath. Now when the congregation was broken up, many of the Yehudis and the religious proselytes followed Sahul and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, persuade them to continue in the grace of Elohim. And the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of Elohim. But when the Yehudis saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy and spake against those things which were spoken by Sahul, contradicting and blasphemy. Then Sahul and Barnabas waxed bold and said, it was necessary that the word of Elohim should first have been spoken to you, But seeing you put it from you and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles. For so as the Adonai commanded us, saying, I have set you to be a light of the Gentiles, that you shall be for you shall be for salvation unto the ends of the earth.
All right, my brother, that's all we wanted to do. It says, but when the Yehudis saw the multitude, they were filled with envy and spake against those things which were spoken by Saul, contradicting and blaspheming. So, is this that same envy that makes our churches go all out? Do you ever see how our churches react versus how the Gentile churches react? Is that same envy that we have to outdo them? Because the Gentile churches can't compare to a black church. So is there that envy in there somewhere that we just got to throw it all on the floor? It's like being at a party. I think we still suffering from a bit of that envy that we just have to outdo them no matter what. When it comes to something dealing with spiritual matters. Even though it's being done in the wrong way, misguided. But that envy is still in our heart. What was that, Acts chapter 13 and verse...
Mm-hmm.
In Mark chapter 7 and verse 27, it says, but Yahshua said unto her, let the children first be filled, for it is not meet to take the children's bread and cast it onto the dogs. Like I stated earlier, we looked at it go from a spiritual to Yahshua saying a carnal statement, that if we get lost in the mix, we can sit there and look at this physical bread that would be on the table. My brother, read the definition for bread here.
Bread, H3823, labab.
And this definition is from the Brown's Driver Briggs.
Brown's Driver, okay. To ravish, become intelligent, get in mind.
So, what bread do you think that you could eat that would make you intelligent? What physical bread can you eat that would make you intelligent or give you a mind? This is about spiritual bread. Go ahead, read the rest of the definition for me.
Niphal, to take heart, become enhearted, become intelligent.
So Yahweh said, I'm going to write my laws in their heart. To take to heart. This is that bread that we need to be consuming. This is what we need to deal with. That's it, my brother. The things we do, both in deeds and speech, are not only attributed onto us as individuals, but as it was stated in the opening scripture, I have been young and now I'm old, yet have I not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. So basically he's saying after all these years of observation, I'm observing the righteous all these years. I see where the righteous has not only furnished for himself, but they have also supplied spiritual bread for their own household. So this begging of bread is the spiritual bread. Yahweh will always provide our wants, our needs. But we have a duty and a job to take the spiritual food. But you also have to provide the spiritual food for your house as well, so that way your seed won't be begging that spiritual bread. That's what it's referring to. I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. Our children, grandchildren should never have lack of this spiritual food, as long as we do our jobs. We can't just ingest it and then don't pass it down to the next generation. We can't just receive and not give to the next generation. It says a man who don't provide for his own household is an infidel. But we can't just look at materialistic things and carnal things and provision. This spiritual food is more important than anything else. Luke chapter 22 and verse 35, and he said unto them, when I sent you without purse, this is Yahshua, when I sent you without purse and scrip and shoes, lacked you anything? And they said nothing. Why didn't they lack anything? Because Yahshua prepared them for the journey. He gave them the spiritual food. But why did he take these things away? Let me see if you can stand without these crutches. That's where we should have conversations while we still have an elder priest available to answer questions, answer certain things. So when we're out and about, we're not searching, looking for somebody from class to come and run and answer this question for us. Here's the opportunity to stand without the scrip, without the purse. Why? Because you still have your spiritual leader here. But the time will come when we're going to have to rely on those notes that we take, those of us that take notes, those highlighted pages in our sword, reflect back on the conversations that we've had with our elder, and be able to stand our ground and stay spiritually grounded and continue to walk. We know that we must one day face a time of lack. But as this generation of the disciples, we being those disciples of Yahshua, have we stored up enough spiritual bread to sustain us during the times of leanness? Or will we be as the foolish virgins looking to borrow from those who have spiritually prepared themselves during this time of plenty? Something for us to consider. That's all we're going to do for this evening. Shalom. Enjoy your new moon.
Shalom.